A barefoot fisherman's son stood at the edge of a stormy reef, eyes fixed on the forbidden cave where no man dared to go. The elders warned that the ancestors sealed it with salt and silence, that only madness lived in the tide-choked hollow. But Zubri didn't care. He wasn't searching for pearls or fish. He was following the whispers of a man who claimed to be his uncle, an odd-eyed traveler with a voice like cracked shells and hands that smelled of secrets. What Zubri found inside the cave would change the fate of the coast forever. A glowing spiral shell pulsed with light, resting on a stone carved long before memory. When Zubri refused to hand it over, the traveler revealed his true form, no uncle, but a banished sea wizard with a hunger for power as deep as the ocean trench. Trapped in darkness, betrayed and alone, Zubri did the unthinkable. He rubbed the shell. And from the crashing foam, she rose, Mami Nyoka, the silver-chained mermaid of legend, bound by magic older than sand. What followed was a tale of riches, revenge, and rising kingdoms. One boy's kindness would awaken an ocean goddess. One stolen shell would spark a battle between spirit and sorcerer. And one quiet village boy would be crowned the guardian of both land and sea. This is the story of how Zubri risked everything to save a mermaid, and how that single act unraveled a wicked empire, exposed a hidden war, and made the waves remember his name. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. A huge thank you to all our amazing channel members. Your support helps us keep these magical tales alive and thriving. In the quiet coastal village of Mbamba, the sun rose every morning like a golden drumbeat, calling the fishermen to the sea. The salty air smelled of fish, seaweed, and earth warmed by the sun. Small wooden boats, painted in bright reds and blues, bobbed gently on the waves like toys in a bath. The village was alive with the sounds of children laughing, women singing songs while they washed clothes in the river, and men mending their fishing nets. Among these sounds, one boy stood out, not because he was the strongest or the richest, but because of the fire in his eyes. His name was Zubri. He was 20 years old, with skin the color of dark mahogany and eyes that shone like the stars above the ocean at night. His hands were calloused from helping his father untangle nets, but his heart dreamed of a life far beyond Mbamba's sandy shores. Zubri, his mother called softly from their small hut near the beach. "Come eat before you go off daydreaming again." Zubri smiled but didn't move. Instead, he stared out at the endless blue of the sea. "Why do you always look at the ocean like it's calling you?" asked Kofi, his best friend, as he dropped beside him on the sand. "Because it is," Zubri replied. "I feel like the sea holds something special for me. Something bigger than fishing nets and small boats." Kofi laughed and shook his head. "Dreams don't fill stomachs, brother. You need to help your father today. The nets are torn, and the fish are few." Zubri nodded but didn't feel discouraged. He knew many in the village thought he was foolish. "One day, I will be more than a fisherman's son. I will have a story that people tell around their fires, a story that inspires." His mother joined them, her face warm but lined with worry. "My son, the sea is beautiful and wild. It gives life, but it can take life too. You must be careful. Dreams are good, but the world is harder." Zubri looked at her kindly. "I will be careful, Mama. But I have to try. If I don't chase my dream, who will?" At that moment, a soft breeze blew in from the ocean, carrying the scent of salt and adventure. It wrapped around Zubri like a whisper, a promise that something great awaited him beyond the horizon. As the village prepared for the day's fishing, Zubri stood tall on the shore, feeling the sand between his toes and the rhythm of the waves in his chest. The ocean was calling. And he was ready to listen. The sun was sinking low behind the palm trees, turning the sky into a bright painting of reds and golds. The village of Mbamba buzzed with activity, fishermen pulling their boats to shore, women chatting as they prepared dinner, and children playing with shells and driftwood on the sand. Zubri sat near the market, watching the waves. His heart was restless. He longed for adventure, for something beyond the simple life he knew. Suddenly, a shadow moved near the edge of the village. A tall man cloaked in shimmering blue appeared, his step silent as the ocean's breath. This was no ordinary visitor. His eyes held a strange light, sharp and cunning, like a predator watching its prey. He was a sea wizard, a powerful sorcerer once banished from the depths of the ocean. He had spent years searching for a way to regain his strength. The key was the glowing spiral shell hidden deep inside a forbidden reef cave, an ancient relic that held the power of the ocean's magic. But the cave was cursed. No wizard, no matter how strong, could claim the shell alone. The sea wizard knew he needed someone brave and strong, someone pure of heart but unaware of the dangers, to retrieve the shell for him. He spotted Zubri, the boy who dared to dream, and a sly smile spread across his lips. Zubri noticed the stranger approaching and stood up, curiosity flooding his chest. "Greetings, boy of Mbamba," the wizard said, his voice smooth as silk but cold underneath. "I am Uncle Jabari, a traveler with knowledge of the sea's deepest secrets." Zubri blinked. "Uncle. I don't remember you." Jabari laughed softly, a sound like waves breaking over sharp rocks. "I was once your uncle, long ago. But I have been away, studying the magic of the ocean." Zubri hesitated but felt drawn to the wizard's mysterious words. "What do you want with me?" "There is a treasure hidden in a cave beyond the reef," Jabari said, lowering his voice. "A spiral shell that glows with the power of the ancestors. With it, I can reclaim my lost magic and rule the seas." "But the cave is cursed," Zubri said, recalling the stories whispered by the elders. "No one who enters returns." "Exactly why I need your help," Jabari said, his eyes gleaming. "I cannot go myself. The curse would trap me forever. But you, young, brave, and pure, you can enter and bring me the shell." Zubri's heart beat faster. "And what will you give me in return?" "Riches beyond your wildest dreams," Jabari promised. "A palace on the sea, and all the power you could ever want." Zubri thought of his mother's words and his own dreams. "I will think about it." "Do not wait too long, boy," Jabari warned, his smile fading into something dark. "The sea is patient, but magic waits for no one." That night, as the village slept, Zubri could not shake the wizard's words from his mind. The glowing shell, the forbidden cave, the promise of a life beyond fishing nets, it all called to him like the ocean tide. Little did he know, the wizard's true plan was far more dangerous than it seemed. The power of the shell was not meant for a man's greed, it belonged to the sea itself. And to take it was to risk awakening forces beyond any mortal's control. The moon hung high over Mbamba, casting silver light on the waves that whispered secrets to the shore. The village lay quiet, with only the soft breathing of the ocean and the rustling of palm leaves to break the stillness. But inside Zubri's small hut, the night was filled with restless thoughts. His mother had warned him many times, "The sea is both giver and taker, my son. Do not trust what you cannot see." Yet the wizard's promise echoed louder than fear in Zubri's heart. Riches, adventure, a life beyond the ordinary, that was a dream too bright to ignore. At dawn, Zubri found himself standing on the edge of the reef, where jagged rocks met the roaring sea. The forbidden cave lay hidden beyond a narrow path of slippery stones. Jabari stood beside him, his cloak fluttering in the salty wind. "Are you ready?" the wizard asked, his voice low and smooth. Zubri swallowed hard. "I am." Together, they stepped carefully over the sharp rocks and into the mouth of the cave. Darkness swallowed them, but the cave walls shimmered faintly with glowing crystals, lighting their way like tiny stars. Inside, the air smelled damp and salty. Strange sounds echoed, dripping water, the distant crash of waves, and something else, a soft, mysterious humming. Zubri's heart pounded, but he followed Jabari deeper into the cave, his hand brushing against cold stone walls covered in ancient carvings of sea creatures and waves. "Look," Jabari whispered, pointing ahead. "There it is." On a smooth stone pedestal rested the glowing spiral shell. It pulsed gently, as if alive, casting a blue-green light that filled the cave with magic. Zubri reached out, his fingers trembling as they touched the shell. It was warm, and the light inside seemed to dance. Suddenly, Jabari's face darkened. "Hand it over, boy." Zubri pulled back, clutching the shell to his chest. "No. This belongs to the sea." Jabari's eyes flashed with anger. With a wave of his hand, strange glowing chains wrapped around Zubri, binding him tightly. "You will give me the shell," Jabari hissed. "Or you will remain here forever." Zubri struggled, panic rising like the tide. Then, remembering the stories his mother told him about the ocean's magic, he squeezed the shell tightly and rubbed its smooth surface. A bright light exploded in the cave, and from the shimmering mist emerged Mommy Nyoka, the mermaid of legend. Her eyes were deep and wise, her hair flowing like seaweed, and silver chains adorned her arms and neck. "You have summoned me," she said in a voice like the waves. "By the magic of the ocean, I am bound to grant your wishes." Zubri bowed his head. "Please, help me. Free me from these chains." Mommy Nyoka's eyes softened. With a wave of her hand, the glowing chains dissolved, and Zubri was free. "You are kind and brave," she said. "Because of this, I will help you." With a splash of magic, the cave transformed. The walls shimmered, and a doorway of light appeared. "Take the shell," Mommy Nyoka said. "But beware. The wizard's heart is dark, and he will stop at nothing to claim the ocean's power." Zubri nodded, courage filling his chest. He turned to Jabari, who stood back, his face twisted with fury. "This is only the beginning," Jabari snarled. "The sea will belong to me." But before he could act, Mommy Nyoka raised her hand, and a wave of water swept Jabari back. The wizard disappeared into the shadows with a chilling laugh. Zubri held the shell tightly, feeling its warmth and power. "Thank you," he said to Mommy Nyoka. The mermaid smiled. "Now, you must return to your village. The ocean has chosen you for a greater destiny." Zubri stepped out of the cave, the rising sun painting the sky with hope. His life had changed forever. The ocean's waves sang a different song after Zubri's journey to the Forbidden Reef. The glowing spiral shell pulsed gently in his hands, a reminder of the promise Mommy Nyoka had made, to help him if his heart stayed pure and kind. Back in the village of Mbamba, Zubri set to work with new energy. That very morning, he and the fishermen cast their nets into the sea, and to their amazement, the nets came back heavy, bursting with fish. It was as if the ocean itself was smiling on them. Word spread quickly. The fish were plentiful, the ocean generous. Zubri remembered Mommy Nyoka's words and used the shell's magic not for selfish gain but to help the fishermen and traders of Mbamba. He sold the fish at the market, and with the profits, he invested wisely, buying new boats, better nets, and goods to trade in the nearby towns. Each day, Zubri rose with the sun, working hard and learning about business. His name spread beyond Mbamba as a clever young man who respected the sea and its gifts. Months passed, and with the wealth he earned, Zubri built his first mansion on the shore, a place made of coral stones and driftwood, standing tall against the breeze. But his dreams did not stop there. One evening, as the stars twinkled above the waves, Mommy Nyoka appeared beside him, her silver chains sparkling like the constellations. "Zubri," she said softly, "the ocean has blessed your hard work and kindness. Now, it is time to build a home that floats on the water, a palace worthy of your spirit." With a wave of her hand, the waters around Mbamba began to shimmer and rise. Slowly, a grand floating mansion formed, built from coral, seashells, and shining pearl, a palace that moved gently with the tides. Zubri stepped aboard, marveling at his new home. "Now," Mommy Nyoka whispered, "you must seek the princess." Far away, in the city of Django, Princess Safuya lived in a grand stone palace surrounded by gardens filled with bright flowers and tall palms. She was known for her sharp mind, her kindness to her people, and her belief in the strength of hard work, but she had never believed in magic. One day, news reached her of a young man from Mbamba whose success grew like the tides, whose floating palace was a marvel whispered about in every market and port. Curious, and with a heart that longed for something more than court life, Safuya decided to see this young man for herself. When Zubri first arrived in Django's grand city, he was greeted with wonder and curiosity. The merchants and nobles whispered of the boy who had risen from fisherman to prince of the sea. One afternoon, at the bustling market near the palace, Zubri walked among the stalls when he caught sight of Princess Safuya herself, surrounded by attendants and laughing softly. Their eyes met, hers sharp and guarded, his steady and respectful. Zubri bowed deeply. "Your Highness, I am Zubri, son of the fisherman from Bamba. I have come to show you that magic is real, but more than magic, that hard work and kindness can change the world." Safuya regarded him with surprise. "You speak with courage, Zubri. Many say your floating palace is a trick, a tale to fool the curious. If magic is true, prove it." Zubri smiled humbly. "Come with me to the sea. There you will see the ocean's gift." That evening, Safuya joined Zubri at the shore of Mbamba. Together, they watched as the sun dipped below the horizon and the palace rose gently from the waves, shimmering under the moonlight. Zubri told her of Mami Nyoka, the mermaid bound by ancient magic, and of the shell that had changed his life. Safuya listened, her doubts softening like the tide. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "there is more to this world than I believed." In that moment, a friendship began, one built not just on magic, but on respect and the promise of a new future. The morning sun spilled gold over the village of Mbamba, sparkling on the waves and casting long shadows beneath the palm trees. Life was thriving, fishermen brought in bountiful catches, markets buzzed with trade, and Zubri's floating palace gleamed proudly on the water like a pearl kissed by the sea. Yet, beneath the bright sky, a shadow crept closer. From the distant horizon, a small wooden boat bobbed along the shore, its sails patched and weathered by many storms. On board stood a man with a crooked smile and eyes sharp as a hawk's. He carried a large basket filled with shells of every color, glossy conchs, spiraled whelks, and tiny, glittering cowries. He was dressed simply, but there was something strange about the way he moved, as if he was watching the village more than the shells he sold. The villagers gathered around, curious. "Seashells for sale," the men called out, holding up a bright orange conch. "Magic shells from faraway seas. Who wants to buy a treasure from the ocean's heart?" Zubri watched from his palace steps. There was something familiar, something wrong, about the merchant's voice. His heart tightened. Mami Nyoka appeared beside him, her gaze sharp and knowing. "Be careful, Zubri. That man is not who he seems." At the market, the merchant approached Princess Safuya, who was inspecting the stalls with her usual keen eye. The princess was polite but distant, wary of strangers. "Princess," the merchant said smoothly, bowing low. "I bring you the rarest shells in all the seas. Some say these shells hold power, the power to grant wishes, to command the waves, even to bend the ocean to one's will." Safuya raised an eyebrow. "Power in a shell. That sounds like a story to sell shells to children." The merchant smiled, showing just a flash of sharp teeth. "Ah, but stories often hide truths, Your Highness. Perhaps you would like to see for yourself." He held out a small, shimmering shell unlike any the princess had ever seen. It glowed faintly, shifting colors in the sunlight. Curious despite herself, Safuya took the shell in her hand. "Careful with that," Zubri called out from a nearby stall, stepping forward. "It is not a simple shell. It is a copy, a trick. Do not be fooled." The merchant's smile twisted. "And who are you to tell the princess what to do?" Zubri squared his shoulders. "I am the guardian of the true shell, the one you seek. That man is Jabari, a sea wizard who wishes to steal its power." Safuya's eyes flicked between them. Jabari? The banished wizard who vanished from the coastal lands years ago. The merchant's face darkened for a moment before he laughed. "Stories are for the weak. Power belongs to those brave enough to take it." That night, Zubri sat on the balcony of his floating palace, staring at the glowing shell resting on the carved coral table. Mami Nyoka appeared beside him, her face serious but calm. "Jabari's return means danger," she said. "He wants the shell to increase his dark magic and rule the ocean. We must prepare." Zubri nodded, determination filling his chest. "I will protect the shell," he promised. no matter what. Mommy Nyoka smiled softly. And you will not be alone. The ocean watches over you, and so do I. Meanwhile, Jabari plodded beneath the waves, his dark eyes glowing with greed. The boy thinks he can keep the shell, Jabari hissed. But the ocean's magic will be mine once again. As the moon rose high and the waves whispered their ancient songs, a battle of wills began, one that would test Jabari's courage, the strength of his new friends, and the power of a young man who dared to dream. The sun was just beginning to rise over the village of Mbamba, casting long golden rays across the sea. The gentle lapping of waves against the floating palace sounded like a heartbeat, steady, calm, but full of life. Inside the coral halls of his shimmering home, Jabari stood near the window, watching the horizon with a furrowed brow. The glowing spiral shell rested on a wooden pedestal carved with ocean symbols. Its soft light pulsed slowly, almost like it was breathing. Mommy Nyoka appeared beside him, her silvery tail glistening even in the early light. Her coral and silver chains tinkled softly with her every movement, and her deep eyes reflected centuries of wisdom. "We cannot wait for Jabari to come," she said quietly. "His magic is dark, fueled by greed and anger. He will not stop until he has the shell." Jabari nodded, determination lighting up his face. "I have to protect it. But how? I am just a fisherman's son, though I am lucky to have you." Mommy Nyoka smiled, a gentle warmth in her gaze. "You have more strength than you know, Jabari. The ocean chose you for a reason. And now, you will not be alone." Outside, the village was waking to a new day filled with hope and worry. Fishermen prepared their boats while market sellers arranged their goods. The news of Jabari's return had spread like a wave, and the villagers whispered in hushed tones. Princess Safuya had come to Mbamba earlier that morning, arriving in a carriage drawn by strong horses. She stepped down with a steady stride, her eyes searching for Jabari. When she found him, he was standing on the shore, watching the waves. "Jabari," she called softly. He turned and smiled. "Princess Safuya. You came." "I could not stay away," she admitted. "I want to help." Jabari looked at her with surprise. "You help me? But you are a princess." Safuya laughed, a sound like warm rain. "Being a princess means caring for my people, even if it means facing dangers I do not understand." Together, Jabari, Safuya, and Mommy Nyoka met inside the floating palace's grand hall. The walls were made of shimmering shells and coral, glowing softly in the morning light. On a carved table lay the glowing shell, its light steady and strong. "We must prepare the village and the sea," Mommy Nyoka said. "The ocean will help those who respect it." Jabari nodded. "I will tell the fishermen to be ready. We will protect the shell with everything we have." Safuya stepped closer, her eyes bright with resolve. "And I will send guards to watch the palace. Jabari will not catch us off guard." As the day turned to evening, Jabari walked along the beach, the soft sand cool beneath his feet. The stars began to twinkle, and the ocean's song grew louder. Mommy Nyoka appeared beside him, her voice a whisper. "The Trench of Echoes is where Jabari hides now. If we want to defeat him, we must go there." Jabari swallowed hard. The stories of the trench were filled with danger, glowing waters that trapped souls, ancient spirits that whispered secrets, and creatures darker than the night. "But I am ready," Jabari said firmly. "For my village, for the ocean, and for you." Mommy Nyoka smiled, her eyes shining. "Then we will face the storm together." Far below the waves, Jabari's dark laughter echoed through the Trench of Echoes. His twisted fingers clenched a fake shell, a mockery of the glowing spiral. "The ocean's power will be mine," he hissed. "And soon, that boy will be nothing but a forgotten wave." But the sea itself was restless. The spirits whispered of a young hero who dared to stand against the dark, a fisherman's son chosen by the ocean's heart. The morning air was still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The villagers of Mbamba gathered on the shore, their eyes wide with worry and wonder. Children clung to their mothers, and fishermen paused in their work to gaze at the shimmering vessel that floated like a dream upon the water. It was no ordinary boat. Carved from driftwood and coral, the vessel shimmered with magic, a gift from Mommy Nyoka herself. Its sails were woven from seaweed and thread spun by jellyfish, strong and glowing faintly under the rising sun. At its helm stood Zubri, his face calm but his eyes alert. Beside him, Princess Safuya wore a flowing robe made of indigo cloth, embroidered with golden fish and sunbursts. Her once skeptical heart now beat with belief, in Zubri, in the mermaid, and in the magic that surrounded them. Mommy Nyoka rose from the sea, her silver chains glistening as she climbed onto the deck with the grace of the tides. Zubri raised his voice to the gathered crowd. My people, today I sail not just for myself, but for all of us. The ocean gave me a gift, and now I must protect it. Jabari the sea wizard hides in the trench of echoes. We go to face him, and we will not return until the sea is safe once more. There was silence for a long moment. Then, an elder raised his walking stick high. Go, Zubari. The ancestors walk with you. Cheers rose. Drums beat. Cowrie shells clinked as the people danced, sending their blessings upon the sea wind. With a wave of his hand, Zubri untied the floating vessel and set sail. As the ship glided across the water, strange things began to happen. The clouds above swirled in spirals. Flocks of birds circled and called out in voices that didn't sound like birds at all. And the waves, once calm, now whispered with a low hum, like old voices chanting a forgotten song. Safuya leaned against the railing. Is this normal? She asked, her voice low. Mommy Nyoka nodded. The trench of echoes is near. It is a place where the ocean remembers everything. Every cry, every lie, every wish. You must be strong, princess. The trench knows how to twist your heart. Zubri tightened his grip on the wheel. Let it twist. I will not turn back. By midday, the sky had dimmed even though the sun still shone. They reached a place where the ocean turned an eerie shade of green-blue, glowing beneath the surface like fireflies trapped in glass. Then, without warning, the waters grew still. No wind. No waves. Just silence. Zubri frowned. Why have we stopped? The trench tests you, Mommy Nyoka said. It does not let just anyone pass. You must earn the right. Suddenly, the silence broke. A voice, old and cracked like dried leaves, rose from the depths. Zubri. Fisherman's son, why do you come here? Zubri stepped forward. I come to stop Jabari. He wants to steal the shell, to take its magic and harm the ocean. The voice laughed, echoing all around them. And what will you give in return? Zubri's voice was steady. My heart. My courage. My life, if I must. A long pause. Then. You may enter. The ship lurched forward, not by wind or wave, but pulled by something ancient beneath them. The water began to swirl, faster and faster, until it opened into a dark, spiraling tunnel. The trench, Mommy Nyoka whispered. Hold on. They plunged into the spiral. Inside the trench, the world changed. The water glowed in strange colors, reds, purples, silver. Fish with lantern eyes darted through coral shaped like trees. Strange plants waved like they were whispering secrets. Zubri held the shell close to his chest. Its light grew brighter, as if it sensed Jabari's presence. Suddenly, the ship shook. From the glowing coral ahead, a shape emerged. It was a creature, long and serpent-like, with dozens of glowing eyes. Its voice thundered through the water. Turn back, or be devoured. Princess Safuya drew her dagger, its blade gleaming like starlight. We do not turn back, she said firmly. We protect the ocean. Zubri stepped forward and lifted the shell. I call upon the spirit of the sea, he shouted. Mommy Nyoka, guardian of the depths, protect us. The shell shone like a sun. Mommy Nyoka rose high above the ship, her hair flowing like waves, her chains clinking with power. She sang. It was not a song of words, but of sea and spirit, storm and calm, of everything that lives in the heart of the ocean. The serpent paused, then lowered its head in respect. It slithered aside, allowing them to pass. "You have been tested," it said. "May the sea guide you." As the ship sailed deeper into the trench, the water grew colder and darker. They were close. Jabari's magic pulsed in the distance, foul and thick like oil on water. And though fear clutched at their hearts, none of them turned back. Because the heart of the ocean had already chosen Zubari, and his story had only just begun. The trench grew darker. Even though the glowing shell in Zubari's hand shone like a small moon, shadows slithered around the ship like curious sea snakes. The silence was heavy, but not empty, it was filled with whispers. "Turn back. You are not enough. You are just a fisherman's son." Zubari's fingers tightened around the shell. Sweat trickled down his brow, though the water around them had grown cold. Princess Safuya stood close by, clutching her cloak tighter. Her eyes darted around, watching the glowing coral drift by, the strange fish swimming in silence, and the towering rock walls that seemed to lean in like giants listening. "This place feels alive," she said, her voice barely louder than a breath. "It is," Mommy Nyoka replied. Her voice was low and calm. "This trench remembers every word ever spoken near it. Every wish. Every lie. Every broken promise." Zubari looked down at the shell. "Will it protect us?" Mommy Nyoka gave him a steady look. "It will protect truth. But you must face the lies." Suddenly, the ship groaned. The water around them shimmered, like hot air above a fire, and everything changed. Gone was the floating ship. Gone were Safuya and Mommy Nyoka. Zubari stood alone. But not on water. He was back on the shore of Mbamba, barefoot, in the same old tattered shirt he wore before he met the sea mermaid. The sun was burning hot. His father's fishing boat was half sunk, just like it had been when they had no money. Fishermen nearby laughed and pointed at him. Look at him. Dreaming of magic again. Zubari the fool. Zubari's heart thudded. He knew this wasn't real, it couldn't be. But it felt real. The sand beneath his toes. The sweat on his face. The shame burning in his chest. He saw the fake Jabari step forward, dressed like a village elder, holding a broken shell. "Give up, Zubari. No one believes in you. Not even the sea." Zubari fell to his knees, unsure for a moment. Was it all just a dream? The mermaid? The palace? Safuya? Then, the real shell in his hand pulsed. Once. Twice. The illusion cracked like glass. Zubari stood up. "I am not a fool. I am chosen." The fake Jabari screeched and turned into mist. The beach melted away. When the world returned, Zubari was back on the ship. He gasped and looked around. Safuya? Mommy Nyoka. Princess Safuya was across from him, holding her dagger, but tears ran down her cheeks. "I saw my mother," she whispered. "She told me I was weak. That I should have stayed in the palace. That I would fail." Mommy Nyoka held her hand gently. "The trench speaks in echoes. It uses your deepest fears against you. But you have faced them, and you are still here." Zubari stepped forward. "I saw my past. The pain. The shame. But I remembered who I am." Mommy Nyoka nodded. "Good. Because what lies ahead is worse than illusions." They sailed deeper. The water glowed faintly, now tinted red. Rock formations shaped like twisted faces stared out from the cliffs. One of them, a giant open mouth, stood ahead. "That is the gate of truth," said Mommy Nyoka. "Once we pass it, Jabari will sense us. There will be no hiding." Zubari looked at the shell. It had grown hot in his hand. He turned to his friends. "We don't need to hide. We're here to end this." The boat sailed into the gate. A sound, like thunder and crashing waves mixed with whispering wind, filled their ears. The shell glowed so brightly that it lit up the entire trench. And then they saw it. Floating in a cavern of black coral was a dark palace, twisted and sharp like the bones of a sea monster. Jellyfish lights floated around it like haunted spirits. Sea creatures, ugly and glowing with green fire, guarded the gates. That was Jabari's lair. And he was waiting. Inside the palace, the sea wizard sat on a throne made of shark teeth and bones. His robe shimmered with black pearls. The false shell he had tricked from Sophia pulsed dimly in his hand. Jabari sneered. So, the boy dares to enter. He stood, his eyes flashing. Let him come. Let them all come. I will tear the truth from their hearts and the shell from his hands. And then the sea will be mine forever. Above, in the floating vessel, Zubari looked toward the glowing gates of the black coral palace. He held the true shell close and whispered, for the ocean, for my people, for everything I believe in. Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder. And for those who never stopped believing in you. Mommy Nyoka closed her eyes. Let the storm come. We are ready. They sailed forward. Into the storm. Into the darkness. Into the place where fate would be decided. The gates loomed like the ribs of a giant sea monster. Each pillar of black coral reached into the darkness above, shaped by twisted sea magic and the whispers of those who had failed before. Jellyfish lights blinked like slow, tired stars. Faint music, sad and hollow, drifted from within, not sung by instruments, but by the coral itself. Zubari tightened his grip on the glowing shell. Every time the vessel creaked or the water splashed, he flinched. But he kept his eyes forward. Beside him, Princess Sophia had tied her long hair into a warrior's braid. Her dagger gleamed, sharp and silver, tucked into her sash. She no longer looked like a princess from a golden palace. She looked like a storm. Mommy Nyoka hovered near the prow of the boat, her silver chains glowing softly in the dim trench water. Her gaze stayed fixed on the fortress. This is where Jabari feeds his power, she whispered. Everything in this place obeys him, even the water. We must tread with care. The vessel drifted slowly through the gate. Inside the black coral walls, the water thickened like syrup. Strange fish swam backward. Small octopuses clung to the ceiling and whispered secrets to one another. And the very floor of the sea seemed to shimmer, not solid, not water, but something between dream and nightmare. Suddenly, the water split with a deep hiss. A sea snake, long as 5 fishing boats, slithered from the darkness. Its eyes were milky white. Around its neck hung a broken chain, pulsing with dark purple light. Zubari stepped forward. Let us pass. The snake didn't speak. Instead, it opened its mouth, and let out a blast of poison bubbles. Mommy Nyoka dove forward. With a flick of her hand, she summoned a wall of shimmering light from the shell's magic. The bubbles popped harmlessly against it. Not today, Njoka, she said to the serpent. Go back to the deep. But the snake only snarled louder, and lunged at the ship. Sophia moved like lightning. She grabbed a spear from the deck and hurled it straight into the beast's eye. The serpent screamed, twisting in pain, before vanishing into the dark. Zubari turned to Sophia, eyes wide. That was incredible. Sophia shrugged. That's what happens when you grow up with 5 brothers and no patience. They laughed, just for a moment, and in that moment, the darkness felt a little less heavy. They sailed deeper. Now the palace surrounded them completely, walls of living coral, flickering fish trapped in crystal, and long shadows that moved even when nothing else did. Finally, the vessel came to a stop. Before them stood the main gate, a towering doorway made of twisted shells, guarded by 2 statues carved from obsidian. Their eyes glowed red. As Zubari stepped forward, the statues moved. They turned their heads. One opened its mouth. Speak, bearer of the shell, it said in a voice like cracking rocks. What do you seek? Zubari held up the shell. I seek justice. I seek the return of the true spirit, Mommy Nyoka. I seek the heart of the sea to be free. The statues were silent. Then, the second one leaned closer. If your heart is true, prove it. Sacrifice what you love most. The air grew cold. Zubri looked at the shell. Then at Safuya. Then at Mommy Nyoka. He stepped forward. I would give up riches, power, even this shell, but not my friends. I would never trade them for anything. That is not love. That is fear. The statues paused. Then, their eyes dimmed. The gate opened. And a path of glowing stones lit the way forward. They stepped through the gate and into a wide, echoing hall. This was Jabari's court. Coral thrones lined the walls, but they were empty. Jellyfish floated in jars. Pearls wept tears of silver from the ceiling. And on the throne at the far end sat Jabari. His face had changed. He no longer looked like the traveler who had tricked Zubri at the beginning. He looked older now, his face stretched too long, his eyes glowing with sea fire, and his robes made from dark eel skin. Around his neck, the false shell glowed faintly. But it was cracked. Ah, Jabari said, standing. So, the fisherman returns. And you bring your pets. Safuya stepped forward. We're not pets. We're here to end you. Jabari laughed. End me. You think this, he pointed to the real shell, can defeat me? That broken trinket. It is nothing compared to what I've built. Mommy Nyoka's voice was calm, but powerful. You have built lies on top of pain, Jabari. The ocean was never yours. Jabari's face twisted. The ocean forgot me. I was cast out by the sea kings. Banished for dreaming too big. I swam alone in the trench for 100 years. I found this palace. I fed it with power. And now, I will take what's mine. Zubri stepped forward. You used me, he said quietly. You lied to me. You wanted me to steal the shell because you couldn't touch it yourself. Jabari's smile faded. And yet you did steal it, didn't you, boy? That means some part of you is like me. Zubri raised the shell, which now glowed brighter than ever. No, he said. It means I chose to be better. The walls trembled. A wind, impossible in the deep sea, began to swirl around the throne room. The statues in the corners cracked. The false shell around Jabari's neck began to shake. Jabari roared. If I cannot take the shell, I will shatter it. He raised his hands, and dark magic surged from his fingers. The room exploded in sea fire and light. Everything shook. The throne room of black coral twisted like it was alive. Shell chandeliers shattered above them. The sea fire from Jabari's hands turned into thick black smoke that slithered along the walls, creeping toward Zubri, Safuya, and Mommy Nyoka. Get back! Zubri shouted, holding the real shell high. Its light flared like the sun rising underwater. The black smoke hissed and pulled away, afraid of the shell's glow. But Jabari only laughed. You think your little trinket can stop me? I was born from the trench. I swallowed the tongues of deep whales and stole fire from the jellyfish that glow in the dark. His voice shook the coral walls. With a roar, he threw his arms wide, and from the shadows came sea spirits twisted by his dark magic. They had no eyes. Their mouths were wide and full of seaweed. They wore broken crowns made of bone and coral. Mommy Nyoka narrowed her eyes. Those are lost kings, she whispered. Rulers who turned their backs on the ocean's balance. Safuya didn't wait. She charged forward, her silver dagger raised. Zubri, she shouted. Use the shell to protect the heart of the room. I'll distract the monsters. Zubri hesitated, heart pounding. But what about you? She grinned over her shoulder. Don't worry about me. I grew up in a palace full of liars and lazy princes. I can handle a few sea zombies. Then she vanished into the battle. Zubri turned to Mommy Nyoka. What do we do? The shell's power is growing, but I don't know how to use it. She floated beside him, her chains glowing with silver light. The shell does not obey strength. It listens to the sea's heart. You must speak your truth. Zubri closed his eyes. All around him, the battle echoed, crashes, cries, and the roar of sea spirits. But in his mind, he returned to the beach of Mbamba. To his father's canoe. To the salty wind in his face. To the days he dreamed of something more. "I never wanted power," he whispered. "I just wanted to matter." The shell pulsed. "I wanted to protect my people. To honor the sea. To prove that even someone poor, someone forgotten, could still do something great." The shell flared in blue and green light. Waves of energy surged out, pushing back Jabari's dark smoke. Jabari screamed. "No. That shell belongs to the old ways. To the spirits that chained me." He hurled a final bolt of sea fire at Zubari. But just before it hit, Mami Nyoka threw herself in front of the blast. The fire struck her chains, and shattered them. A burst of silver exploded in every direction. The spirits wailed and vanished. The black coral cracked. The sea screamed. Zubari rushed to Mami Nyoka as she fell. Her tail shimmered weakly, and her hair floated like sea grass. "I'm free," she whispered. "Zubari, you broke the curse. You spoke the sea's truth. But the shell still calls. You must return it to the deep." Zubari's hands trembled. "But what about you? What if I lose you?" She smiled gently. "You never owned me. I chose to help you because your heart was kind. Now finish what you began." Behind them, Jabari staggered. The false shell around his neck had shattered completely. His power was fading fast. He looked up with hollow eyes. "You think you've won," he growled. "This palace was built on pain. It will not let you leave." Suddenly, the floor cracked. A sound rumbled beneath them, deep, thunderous, ancient. A massive serpent, older than memory, larger than the reef itself, uncoiled from the trench below. Its body shimmered with silver and green, but its eyes were endless pools of black. "The guardian," Mami Nyoka said. "The one who sleeps until balance is broken." The serpent looked straight at Jabari. Then it opened its mouth and swallowed him whole. Just like that, the sea wizard was gone. The throne room began to collapse. Coral fell. Water spun into wild whirlpools. The palace, no longer held together by Jabari's evil, was breaking apart. "Zubari!" Safuya cried, swimming toward him. "We have to go." Zubari looked down at the shell. It pulsed softly in his hands, like a heartbeat. "I have to return it," he said. "To the place where it came from." "Then let's do it together," Safuya said. She grabbed his hand, and the two of them dove. They swam down, past glowing fish, past trenches deeper than dreams, until they reached the ancient stone altar deep in the ocean's heart. Zubari placed the shell gently on the altar. The moment he let go, a light burst from the stone. The sea turned golden. The water warmed. Fish danced in the light, and the plants began to bloom with new colors. Mami Nyoka, now glowing brighter than ever, appeared beside them. "You have done well, Zubari. You have returned what was stolen. The ocean remembers. And the sea is at peace." She raised her hands, and the light wrapped around Zubari and Safuya. In an instant, they were lifted out of the trench, out of the collapsing palace, and onto the surface of the ocean. A new dawn was breaking. And far in the distance, the floating palace, once stolen, now returned, rose again above the waves. Zubari stood on the deck, holding Safuya's hand. He looked out at the sea, then up at the sky. "We did it," he whispered. Safuya smiled. "We did. But something tells me, this isn't the end." Zubari grinned. "Good. I don't want it to be." The sea was calm again. The sun rose like a great golden drum in the sky, beating light across the ocean. Zubari stood at the edge of the floating palace, staring at the horizon. The shell was gone. The curse was broken. Mami Nyoka was free. And the sea had finally stopped weeping. Behind him, Safuya came barefoot across the coral deck, her royal robes fluttering in the sea breeze. "You're quiet," she said. Zubri turned. "I keep thinking, what if it all returns? What if another Jabari rises from the trench?" Safuya gave him a warm smile. "Then we'll rise too." That week, the ocean bloomed with life. Fishermen from every corner of the coast returned home with full nets. Coral fields healed. The sacred turtles came ashore again to lay their glowing eggs. It was as if the sea had forgiven the world. And Zubri, son of a poor fisherman from Bamba, was no longer just a village boy. He was now known across the coast as the Ocean Prince, guardian of the waves, friend of mermaids, speaker of truth. Safuya remained by his side, helping him build sea bridges and open sea schools, where children from poor fishing villages could come and learn about fish, stars, and the spirits of the ocean. But not everyone was pleased. Far inland, in the tall hills of Kingdom Bashari, kings and queens gathered in secret. "He is too powerful," spat King Obatalari, a sharp-eyed man with gold rings on every finger. "He commands the ocean. The people sing his name more than mine. He built a palace that floats," muttered Queen Nyalia, who ruled over salt mines. "And worse, the princess chose him. A fisherman's son." Around the council fire, the nobles grumbled. "He's making us look weak. He's changing the way people think. Mermaids. Sea magic. What will happen to our power if the commoners start believing in dreams?" Then came a soft voice from the shadows. A girl no older than 10, in a dark green dress, stepped into the circle. Her eyes were like calm water, deep and hard to read. "My name is Adela," she said. "And you should be more worried. Zubri hasn't even begun to unlock the true power of the sea." The kings laughed. What would a child know? Adela didn't flinch. She raised one hand, and the fire turned silver. The nobles gasped. For just a moment, their shadows rose behind them like giant creatures. One had tentacles. Another had wings of fishbone. The third had no face at all. Then it was gone. "I am not a child," Adela said calmly. "I am the watcher of the silver current. And I come with a warning." The fire snapped. A loud hiss echoed through the chamber. "You must stop Zubri," she said, "before he unlocks the second shell." Back at sea, Zubri was having dreams again. He floated through underwater caves made of glass. He heard whispers from the bones of whales. He saw glimpses of something older than time, something deep below the trench. A voice kept calling. "Find me. Find the second shell." He woke in sweat. The stars outside blinked in quiet warning. Later that day, while riding on a canoe toward the markets of Kasiwa, Zubri spoke to Bwana Chanu, the playful sea spirit bound to his conch ring. The ring shimmered as Bwana Chanu appeared, a tiny man made of water, dancing on Zubri's thumb. "Bwana," Zubri said softly, "what is the second shell?" Bwana blinked. "Where did you hear that name?" "It came to me in a dream." The little spirit grew serious. "It's not just a shell. It's a seed of the first ocean. Even I don't know all of its power. But legend says it was hidden before time had memory. And if someone finds it..." He paused. Zubri leaned in. "What happens?" "Then the sea will either bow forever, or burn the world." That night, lightning cracked across the waves. And far off on a hidden island, Adela whispered to a creature made of shadow and bone. "Zubri is close. He's waking the ocean's secrets." The creature grinned. "Then let us welcome him with storms." The wind howled that morning. Not the normal wind that danced across the waves or teased the sails of fishing canoes. No, this wind screamed like 1,000 lost spirits, twisting the clouds into strange shapes and scattering birds across the sky. Zubri stood at the edge of his floating palace, staring into the distance. The storm had not yet touched his waters, but something stirred in his bones. He turned to Safuya, who wore a soft wrap of sea silk and a crown made from coral beads. "The ocean's hiding something," Zubri murmured. "I can feel it in the waves." Safuya raised an eyebrow. "What kind of hiding?" Zubri frowned. The kind that hums at night. The kind that speaks in dreams. That night, Zubri could not sleep. The dreams returned. He was standing in a cave lit by glowing shells. Water dripped from the ceiling. And before him stood a giant tortoise with barnacles covering its back and eyes older than time. The tortoise looked at him and spoke without moving its mouth. The second shell sleeps beyond the maps of men. Where fire meets water and time forgets its name. Come to the island of shattered maps. There, your path begins, or ends. Zubri jolted awake. The next morning, he gathered his council, Safuya, Mami Nyoka, and Bwana Chanu. They met in the coral chamber where the seashells told stories with light. Zubri unrolled a worn scroll given to him by the fishermen of Mbamba, the oldest map they had. It showed the known seas, reefs, and storm belts. But none of them showed an island of shattered maps. There is no such island, Mami Nyoka said softly, her silver chains glimmering in the soft light. Maybe it's not on a map, Safuya suggested. Maybe it's the place where maps end. Zubri looked down at his ring. Bwana Chanu yawned from inside the shell. You're all missing something, he said. The map is not on paper. Zubri blinked. What do you mean? The little spirit grinned. Follow me. With Mami Nyoka's guidance, they dove deep into the sea, past the floating cities and jellyfish meadows, past the whispering reefs where dolphins sang songs older than humans. They reached a part of the ocean that shimmered with a strange energy, a place fishermen feared to cross, called the Drift of Forgotten Names. There, lying half-buried beneath glowing seaweed, was the giant shell of a sea beast. It was the size of a village hut. As they swam closer, Zubri could see something carved into its back, winding lines, swirling patterns, strange symbols. It's a map, Mami Nyoka whispered. But not one written by hands. Bwana Chanu hovered over the shell, then gave a low whistle. This belonged to Mwisho, he said, reverently. Who's Mwisho? Safuya asked. The last turtle, said Bwana. The one who carried the dreams of the first sea gods. He vanished centuries ago. Zubri reached out and placed his hand on the shell. The moment his skin touched the carvings, visions exploded behind his eyes. He saw fire falling from the sky. He saw a volcano beneath the sea, burning but never breaking. He saw a swirling ring of islands, broken, forgotten, dangerous. And at the center, the island of shattered maps. When Zubri woke, Mami Nyoka and Safuya helped him to the surface. He gasped for breath, eyes wide. I saw it, he whispered. The path is there. The island is real. Bwana Chanu floated beside his ear. Then you must go. But be warned, the island's name is not just fancy talk. It breaks every map. Every compass. It turns sailors around until they forget who they are. Zubri's eyes were firm. I don't care. If the second shell is there, we have to find it before someone else does. Safuya touched his arm. Then I go with you. Mami Nyoka nodded. So do I. The sea is not done testing you yet. Zubri looked at his small, strange family, a princess, a mermaid, and a cheeky sea spirit. Then we go together, he said. To the place where maps die. Far away, on a dark island hidden behind whirlpools and cursed fog, Atala stood beside a glowing sea crystal. The creature of shadows behind her hissed. He's coming, she said. He's found the tortoise. The shadow grinned. Then the dance begins. And the sky rumbled with laughter not heard since the ocean's birth. The journey to the island of shattered maps began with soft winds and clear skies. But Zubri knew, deep in his heart, that the ocean was only pretending to be calm. Even the birds flying above the sea sang no songs. The waters had grown too still, like they were holding their breath. Mami Nyoka led the way. Her long coral chains trailed behind her like streams of moonlight. Beside her, Zubri stood at the helm of the Sea Child, his enchanted sailing vessel made from driftwood, seashells, and the bones of a whale gifted by the sea gods. Safuya studied a silver compass enchanted by Bwana Chanu, though it spun wildly every few minutes. How will we know when we're close? Safuya asked, squinting into the open waters. You won't, Bwana Chanu said from his ring. That's the trick. The mist that surrounds the island feeds on memory. You could sail right past it, even land on its shore, and forget why you ever came. Zubri frowned. Then how did the turtle find it? It didn't, Bwana Chanu said. It was born there. Just like others. Creatures who have no need for maps, for names, for memory. Safuya shuddered. How do we fight something that eats your thoughts? Mommy Nyoka swirled around them, her voice slow and echoing like the waves, by remembering what matters most. By dusk, they reached the edge of a strange fog bank. It rolled across the sea like a living thing, thick and blue-gray, shaped like fingers reaching toward the sky. The wind stopped. The birds vanished. Even the waves became whisper-quiet. This is it, Zubri whispered. Bwana Chanu floated up from his shell and circled Zubri's head. Now listen, all of you. The mist that forgets names is no ordinary fog. Once you enter, it will press on your mind. It may steal your memories. You may forget your name, your purpose, even each other. Mommy Nyoka spoke softly, then we must anchor ourselves with memory. She pulled out 4 ocean pearls, each glowing faintly. One for each of us. These are memory pearls. So long as you keep them close, you will remember who you are, but only if you hold on to your truth. Zubri took one in his palm. The moment it touched his skin, he heard the voices of his village, the smell of his father's old canoe, the laughter of children chasing crabs on Bomba Beach. Safuya closed her eyes as hers glowed. I see my mother's palace. The mango tree I used to hide in. My old songbird. Bwana Chanu zipped inside his pearl and grinned. I remember the sea dance of the glass dolphins. I once won a belly flop contest against a water dragon. Zubri smiled faintly. Let's hope that memory keeps you sane. And with that, the sea child sailed into the mist. At first, it was quiet. Too quiet. The boat moved slowly, even though the sails were full. Time seemed to stretch and bend. Zubri felt like they had been moving for hours, or seconds. He couldn't tell. Then, the voices began. Whispers. At first, they were harmless. Zubri, come home. Why are you searching? Let go. But soon they grew louder, crueler. You're not special. You were born in dirt. You don't deserve the princess. You only found the shell by accident. Zubri clutched his memory pearl tightly. They're not real, he whispered. They're just fog. But his head was aching. His thoughts felt muddy, like water filled with silt. The names of his parents began to slip from his mind. Even Mommy Nyoka's face started to blur at the edges. That was when the mist thickened. Safuya stumbled on the deck. I forgot the name of the bird I had, she said, panicked. I forgot what my palace looked like. Wait, who are you? Zubri turned to her quickly. It's me. Zubri. But she stared at him blankly. Zubri. Bwana Chanu appeared beside them, his glow dim. This is bad. The mist is too strong. Even I'm forgetting the taste of seaweed soup, and that's my favorite. Zubri's heart pounded. No. No, we can't lose ourselves. He knelt beside Safuya and held her hand. Remember when we danced beneath the stars on the coral deck? You told me the story of your first treasure, the little wooden fish you carved yourself when you were 7. Safuya blinked. Her lips trembled. Zubri. Yes. That's it. Hold on to that. Her pearl glowed brighter. The color returned to her cheeks. I remember, she breathed. The fish had a chipped fin. I painted it with gold dust. They held each other, clinging to memory like lifelines. Suddenly, a wave rocked the boat. A shape loomed ahead in the fog, vast and dark. The sea child trembled beneath their feet. Out of the mist emerged the island of shattered maps. It was not a normal island. It floated above the water, chunks of broken land circling a volcano that crackled with blue fire. Pieces of old boats, sea stones, and forgotten compasses floated around it like moons. Above it, the mist spiraled upward in a great twisting tower, pulsing with light. Mami Nyoka whispered, "We have arrived." Zubiri took a deep breath. "Then let's find the second shell." But deep within the island, in a place where no sunlight reached, a single eye opened, enormous, red, and ancient. And far away, Attila smiled. "They made it," she said to the shadow beside her. "Let the games begin." The island of shattered maps was alive. As Zubiri, Safuya, Mami Nyoka, and Bwana Channa stepped off the sea child onto the broken island, they realized the ground beneath their feet pulsed like a heartbeat. The sky was a pale gray canvas, torn and stretched, and the air smelled of burnt salt and old magic. The island was not still. Pieces of earth floated in the air like flying rocks, slowly orbiting a massive volcano at the center. Blue fire crackled at its peak, spitting sparks that never fell. Broken compasses hung in midair, spinning in every direction. "This is madness," Safuya whispered. "No," Mami Nyoka corrected gently. "This is forgotten memory made real." Zubiri tightened the straps on his satchel. He carried the memory pearl close to his chest. "Let's move quickly. The second shell is hidden in the volcano's heart." That's what the whispering turtle said. "And how exactly do we get into the heart of a volcano?" Safuya asked. "Climb it." Bwana Channa snorted. "Please. What do I look like, a climbing rope? There's a tunnel entrance somewhere. The last sea cartographer who came here wrote that it lies in the throat of the River of Time." "The River of Time?" Zubiri echoed. "Yes," Mami Nyoka said. "It flows backward." They found the river hidden beneath a ledge of floating stone teeth. It wasn't made of water, not entirely. It shimmered like liquid silver and made no sound, but when Zubiri dipped his finger into it, visions flooded his mind. He saw himself as a baby, cradled by his father on the beach. He saw the first fish he ever caught. He saw the day the sea wizard disguised as Uncle Bako first called to him. "Careful," Mami Nyoka said, pulling him back. "Too much memory and you will drown in your own past." They followed the river upstream, against its backward flow, through a cavern carved with strange shapes, hands reaching, faces weeping, eyes without pupils. The walls glowed faintly with blue moss, and the air grew hot and heavy. "Are those drawings moving?" Safuya asked. Zubiri nodded. "They're watching us." Suddenly, a voice echoed in the chamber. "To pass, you must forget, to remember." The river thickened into a pool before them. A wide stone bridge arched over it, but as they stepped forward, the bridge broke into pieces and floated apart. "What now?" Safuya asked. "Wait," Bwana Channa said. "Look." From the shimmering river rose three figures, shimmering, watery versions of themselves. One looked like Zubiri as a boy, holding a fishing net. Another was Safuya, in her royal dress, weeping in a lonely garden. The third was Mami Nyoka, younger and smiling, her coral chains still unbroken. Each illusion stepped forward and spoke. Zubiri's past self said, "Give me your dreams, and I will build you a life without danger." Safuya's past self said, "Give me your crown, and I will free you from duty." Mami Nyoka's old self said, "Give me your shell, and I will keep you safe forever." The real Mami Nyoka stepped back. They are the temptation of memory. Ghosts of who we used to be. Zubiri stared into his younger self's face. He was smiling so kindly, so innocently. For a moment, Zubiri's heart ached. Then he looked down at his hands. They were rough now. Hands that had sailed storms, fought for his friends, built a floating mansion, and loved deeply. "No," he said. "I don't want comfort. I want purpose." The image of young Zubiri melted into mist. Safuya stepped up, tears in her eyes. "I used to cry alone every night. But I'm no longer that girl. I've found love, bravery, and adventure. Her illusion vanished too. Mommy Nyoka spoke softly. Even ocean spirits can grow. I am more than what I was. Her image broke like glass. The river calmed. The bridge reformed. They crossed. Inside the volcano, the heat was blinding. Flames licked the walls but never burned. The ground was made of glowing lava rock, but cool to the touch. Strange symbols floated in the air, spirals, eyes, stars, each glowing and shifting. At the center of it all, on a pedestal of black stone, rested the second shell. It shimmered with blue-green light. Carved with runes and wound with strands of white sea hair, it pulsed softly like it was breathing. Zubri stepped forward. But before he could reach it, the volcano trembled. A roar tore through the chamber. From the shadows behind the pedestal slithered a creature made of shadow and flame, part serpent, part crab, part forgotten god. Its many eyes blinked. Its voice scraped the air. You seek the shell. Then give me your truest name. Zubri paused. What does it mean? He asked the others. It means, Mommy Nyoka said, you must tell the truth of who you really are. Not what others see. Not what you dream to be. The truth. Zubri stepped forward. My name is Zubri. I was born in a poor village, mocked for dreaming. I have failed before. I have been afraid. But I choose to keep fighting. I have found love, friendship, and purpose. That is who I am. The creature paused. The shell pulsed brighter. Safuya stepped beside him. And I am Safuya, Princess of Sunwater Coast. I once feared the sea. But now I sail it for truth. Mommy Nyoka and Bwana Chanu added their truths as well. The creature bowed. Then take the shell, and remember, only truth can open its power. The second shell floated into Zubri's hands. It sang, soft and powerful. And far away, in the deep halls of the ocean, Attila the sea wizard felt it. He roared in rage. They found it. But it will not help them. He turned to a mirror made of squid ink and sandglass. Send the bone tide. By the time Zubri and his companions returned to the surface of the island of shattered maps, the sea had grown restless. Waves slammed against the floating stones. The air shimmered with tension. In the distance, storm clouds shaped like claws rolled across the sky, dark and heavy with a magic that felt ancient and hungry. Mommy Nyoka gripped the side of the sea child, her silver chains trembling. He knows. Attila knows we have the second shell. Zubri held the glowing spiral close to his chest. Let him come, he said, though fear flickered in his eyes. We'll face him. But before they could sail away, the wind died. The waves stopped. A silence fell, the kind that did not belong in any living sea. Bwana Chanu's conch ring shimmered with a dull gray light. Something's wrong, very wrong. Then, like a scream rising from the throat of the ocean, the sea exploded upward in jagged splinters of water and bone. They were not waves. They were creatures. Hundreds of them, skeletons of ancient sea beasts and long-dead warriors, risen from the drowned graveyards of forgotten battles. Some had the heads of sharks, others the claws of lobsters. Some were dressed in tattered armor made of coral and rusted silver. Their eyes burned blue like cursed fire. At their center rode a figure cloaked in seaweed and kelp, a captain of the dead, holding a trident carved from a whale's rib. The bone tide, Mommy Nyoka whispered. Zubri grabbed the tiller. Hold on. The sea child twisted in the water, but the bone tide was fast. Too fast. Arrows of fishbone zipped past their heads. One struck the mast and splintered it in two. Safuya drew her curved dagger and stood by Zubri's side. We can't outrun them. Bwana Chanu's eyes glowed. Then we fight. He leapt into the water, and with a twist of his body, transformed into a giant glowing manta ray. From his conch ring, bolts of golden light shot out, knocking back the nearest skeletal fishman. Go, he called. I'll hold them off. No. Zubri shouted. We stay together. But before he could turn back, a tidal wave surged under the boat, lifting it high into the air. The sea child flipped once, twice, and shattered against a floating stone tooth. The world became a blur of water, screams, and silence. Zubri awoke on a beach made of crushed shells and green sand. His clothes were torn. The second shell was still clutched tightly in his hand, glowing faintly. He stood, coughing, looking around wildly. Safuya. Mami Nyoka. Bwana. No answer. He saw footprints in the sand, half washed away, leading toward the jungle ahead. He followed them. His feet bled on the jagged shells, but he didn't stop. The sky was purple now, and the trees were black with glowing blue leaves. The air shimmered with whispers. He heard a voice. Safuya's voice. Faint. Calling his name. He ran. Meanwhile, not far away, Safuya had awakened first, her head aching. She was bound in vines of seaweed, her dagger gone. Mami Nyoka lay unconscious beside her, glowing weakly. Around them circled the bone tide, rattling, muttering in a strange tongue. The kelp-caped captain stood above her. He spoke in a voice that scraped like coral on iron. You are the shell-bearer's heart. We will use you to find him. Safuya spat at his feet. You don't scare me. But her voice trembled. The captain chuckled. We don't want fear. We want obedience. He lifted his trident, and it began to glow with a sickly green light. Back in the forest, Zubri heard the scream. Safuya's scream. He didn't think. He just ran. Branches scratched his face. Roots tried to trip him. But he clutched the shell and shouted, "Help me, please. I need to save her." The shell pulsed. And then, as if hearing his desperation, it opened. A soft, ancient hum filled the air, and from its glowing spiral rose a shimmering form, a woman made of seafoam and starlight. Not Mami Nyoka. Another mermaid. One older, sadder, wrapped in kelp and pearl tears. You summoned me, she said. Zubri stared. I didn't mean to. I am the memory of the second shell, she said. You may ask one thing of me, but only once. Zubri didn't hesitate. Take me to Safuya. Now. The spirit nodded. With a wave of her hand, the forest bent, twisted, and opened a path. Zubri ran through it, straight into the camp of the bone tide. He didn't stop. He raised the shell. Let her go. The skeletons turned. The captain growled, too late, shell-bearer. He hurled his trident, but before it could strike, Mami Nyoka woke. She raised her arms, and the water around them exploded upward, turning into a wall of living ocean. The wave crashed down on the bone tide. Zubri ran to Safuya, cutting her binds with a sharp shell. She gasped. You came. Always, he said. Together, they grabbed Mami Nyoka and escaped into the jungle. Later, as night fell and the bone tide retreated into the sea, the three of them huddled around a small fire on a beach made of moonglass. Mami Nyoka looked up. He will come again. Zubri nodded. Let him. Next time, we'll be ready. Safuya reached for his hand. We still have one shell left to find. And then, Zubri said softly, we'll end this. The night was quiet now. The bone tide had vanished beneath the waves, and the three companions, Zubri, Safuya, and Mami Nyoka, had taken refuge beneath the curved shelter of a giant seashell drifted ashore by the tides of fate. Safuya lay close to the fire, drying her clothes. Mami Nyoka floated above the shallows, her hair glowing faintly like moonlight on fish scales. Zubri sat with his knees drawn up, the second shell cradled in his hands like a child. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he finally said, I don't think I ever really understood what I was holding. Safuya looked up. It's more than magic. It's life, Mami Nyoka said. The shells were created by the oldest sea spirits. Not just to grant wishes, but to protect the balance between sea and land. Zubri rubbed the spiral softly. Then why would Attila want to destroy that? Mami Nyoka's voice was low and bitter. He wasn't always evil. He was once a guardian like me. But he desired more. The sea wouldn't give it, so he broke his bond and was cast out. And now, Safuya said, he's taking it back piece by piece. They sat in silence again. Then Bwana Chanu's conch ring flickered, a faint, pulsing glow. Zubri lifted it. Bwana. A small puff of mist escaped the shell, followed by the familiar laughter of the playful sea spirit. Ah, you survived. I told those bone-tied goons they couldn't sink my Zubri. Where are you? Zubri asked quickly. Recovering, Bwana replied. Got bashed against a reef. Nothing a nap and some sea snail stew won't fix. But listen, I've found something. You need to go to the Mirror Lagoon. Safuya blinked. What's that? It's a hidden pool deep in the coral spine jungle, Bwana explained. At midnight, if the moon is full, the lagoon turns to glass. It shows you things, truths hidden in the water, even maps drawn by spirits. Mami Nyoka's eyes widened. Of course. The third shell was last known to be in that region, near the spirit of reflection. But beware, Bwana said, his voice growing faint. The lagoon reflects your heart. If you carry lies, they will rise. The conch dimmed. Zubri turned to his friends. We leave at dawn. By mid-morning, the trio was trekking through the thick green of the coral spine jungle. Birds with feathers like shining coins flew between ancient trees. Monkeys with purple eyes watched them from above. Vines hung like ropes across the sky, and every leaf glistened as if it had just been kissed by rain. Zubri wore a new robe woven from sea silk, gifted by Mami Nyoka. Safuya had her blade back, and a second, carved from shark bone. Mami Nyoka moved between shadow and light, half swimming through the humid air. Hours passed. The deeper they went, the quieter the forest became. Until they reached a small stone arch covered in moss. Beyond it was a wide, round lagoon, as still as a mirror. Trees ringed the edge, their branches hanging low, casting perfect reflections in the water. Zubri stepped forward and gasped. He saw himself, but different. In the water, his reflection wore golden armor, with a crown of coral on his head. Safuya stood beside him, draped in royal blue, her eyes glowing with wisdom. Mami Nyoka floated above them, her chains gone, replaced with a crown of seashells. The reflection smiled at him. And then spoke. You seek the third shell. Zubri staggered back. Did you hear that? Safuya nodded slowly. I think, it's talking to you. The reflection pointed to a small stone at the center of the lagoon. There, it said. But beware. To take it, you must face your deepest truth. Zubri looked to Mami Nyoka. She nodded. I can't help you here. The lagoon knows you. He stepped forward. With each footstep into the water, the surface shimmered. Then the reflection shifted. Zubri saw himself as he truly was, poor, afraid, unsure. A boy who had been laughed at in Bamba. A son who had lost his father to the sea. A dreamer who had nearly been tricked into releasing a monster. The water whispered, "What do you fear, Zubri?" "I fear," he began, voice shaking, failing them. Images surged, Safuya captured, Mami Nyoka in chains, his village flooded, his floating mansion in ruins. The water screamed, "Then prove you are more than fear." A shadow rose from the water, a twisted version of Zubri, draped in the traveler's cloak, eyes burning red. It laughed. "You could have had everything, if you gave me the shell." Zubri clenched his fists. "You're not me." "But I am," the shadow said. "I am the part of you that wanted easy power. That was tempted. That still is." "No," Zubri said. "I wanted to help. I still do. That's why I chose to fight." The shadow snarled and charged. Zubri did not run. He stood tall. And just before the shadow reached him, the second shell flared with light. The shadow vanished. The water calmed. In the center of the lagoon, the stone cracked, and a third shell, larger than the others, rose slowly from the depths. Its surface shimmered with all the colors of the sea, and it sang a soft, wordless song. Zubri took it in both hands. His chest filled with light. Safuya and Mommy Nyoka rushed to him. "You did it," Safuya breathed. "The third shell," Mommy Nyoka whispered. "We have them all." Then the wind turned cold. The sky darkened. And a familiar voice echoed through the trees. "And now, so do I." They turned. And saw Adela. Smiling. Behind him, rising from the jungle floor like ghosts, came the Bone Tide, and this time, they were not alone. They brought villagers. From Bamba. Bound in chains. Screaming. Thunder rumbled over the coral spine as the first raindrops splashed into the mirror lagoon. Zubri clutched the glowing third shell, his heart thumping against his ribs like a war drum. Beside him, Safuya's fingers wrapped tightly around her bone-carved sword, and Mommy Nyoka hovered with eyes flashing like twin storms. Across the clearing, Adela stood in his sea wizard robes, black with a shimmer of kelp green, slick with mist, sea crystals embedded along his collar. His sharp features twisted into a crooked grin as he raised one hand, commanding the shadows around him. Behind him, chained and shivering, were nearly 30 villagers from Bamba, elders, children, even the village chief, Baba Leko. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale with fear. Zubri gasped. "Baba Leko. Auntie Sima, even Duni." Adela spread his arms wide. "You've done well, Zubri. Very well indeed. I always knew you had the spirit of the ocean in you. But the seas are no place for the weak-hearted. Now, give me the shell." Zubri's grip tightened. "You lied to me. You tricked me, tried to trap me in that cave." Adela chuckled. "And you escaped. With help, of course. But think, boy, with the third shell, I can end hunger forever. Command the storms. Heal the land. Isn't that what you want?" "Not like this," Zubri said. "Not with fear. Not with chains." The sea wizard's eyes narrowed. "Then you choose the villagers over the power." Mommy Nyoka hissed, her coral chains rattling. "Release them, Adela. The spirits of the deep will not forgive this." He laughed. "The spirits are quiet now. I silenced them." Behind him, one of the bone-tied warriors yanked a chain, dragging forward a small boy, no older than 6, Zubri's distant cousin, Barrow. The boy was crying, clutching a carved wooden dolphin. "Zubri." Barrow sobbed. "Help us." That was the last straw. Zubri stepped forward, voice shaking but loud. "I will not give you the shell. And if you want it, come and take it." With a roar, he lifted the third shell, and its song surged into the air, high, clear, and ancient. The lagoon flashed white. Suddenly, ghostly shapes rose from the water, spirits of past guardians, cloaked in seaweed and pearls. They surrounded Zubri, whispering words in an ancient tongue. Mommy Nyoka translated, her voice awed. "They bless your stand. They say, you are now a true protector of the reef." Safuya stepped beside him. "Let's show them who we are." Adela snarled. "Enough." He raised both hands, summoning a black wave behind him, dark water that reeked of rot and greed. "Let the bone tide rise." The warriors charged. Zubri acted fast. With all 3 shells clutched in his arms, he called on their power. "Shells of sea and spirit, bring forth the tide of truth." A towering wall of water exploded upward from the lagoon, crashing into the charging bone tide. Some were swept away screaming, others dropped their chains and fled into the forest. Adela held his ground, summoning barriers of jagged coral to protect himself. "I will not be denied." He lunged at Zubri. The two clashed, staff against shells, power against will. Adela's staff glowed with deep purple as he struck again and again, but Zubri dodged, ducked, and finally flung the shells skyward. They spun in a spiral of silver and light, then dropped, one into each of his hands, and the third into the palm of Mommy Nyoka, who rose high, eyes glowing brighter than the moon. "You betrayed the ocean, Attila," she declared. "And now the ocean answers." She struck the ground with the shell, and the jungle trembled. The villagers' chains shattered. Baba Leko rushed forward, cradling Barrow. The others cheered, collapsing into each other's arms. Attila screamed, hurling his staff in rage. Zubri caught it midair, and snapped it in two. Silence fell. The sea wizard staggered back, his robes wilting, the magic draining from his face. "No," he whispered. "I was meant to rule." From beneath the trees, a deep growl echoed. Everyone froze. Then the ground cracked open, and out slithered the ancient sea serpent of justice, its scales like gold-dusted obsidian, its eyes glowing blue fire. The villagers gasped. Attila turned to run, but it was too late. The serpent wrapped its body around him in one swift motion. He shouted, cursed, and then, in a flash of silver light, he was gone. Swallowed. Silence fell over the mirror lagoon. Only the soft weeping of thankful villagers and the gentle lapping of water could be heard. Zubri dropped to his knees, exhausted. Safuya came to his side and held him. "You did it." "No," he whispered. "We did." Mommy Nyoka floated above them, smiling. "The shells are safe. The balance is restored." Zubri looked at the 3 shells, now resting on a bed of lilies. He walked forward, picked them up one by one, and with great care, returned each to the water. They sank slowly, glowing like stars falling from the sky. Mommy Nyoka watched with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Zubri. The ocean remembers." The villagers surrounded him, some chanting, others kneeling. Baba Leko stepped forward, bowing low. "You are no longer just Zubri, son of a fisherman. You are Zubri, guardian of the sea." But Zubri shook his head. "No titles. No crowns. Just a boy who tried to do what was right." Safuya smiled, kissing his cheek. "And that's what makes you worthy." Thunder faded. The clouds parted. And in the distance, the sea called again. The skies over Mbamba glowed pink as dawn broke. The storm had passed, and the sea shimmered like a blanket of light. For the first time in generations, the village felt peace deep in its bones. Zubri stood on the shore, watching the last of the villagers return from the mirror lagoon. They had spent the night celebrating, singing songs of the ocean, beating drums made from old canoes, and sharing the story of how a humble fisherman's son defeated the greatest sea wizard the coast had ever known. Beside him, Princess Safuya wore a smile that was both proud and soft. "The villagers say they want to name the lagoon after you." Zubri chuckled. "They should name it after the people who lived through it. Or Mommy Nyoka." At that, a swirl of turquoise mist rose from the waves, and Mommy Nyoka appeared, more radiant than ever. Her silver chains shimmered like moonlight, and her long hair flowed like sea grass in the current. "You have returned the balance, Zubri," she said, her voice carrying the calm of the deep. "The shells are at rest. The ocean is healing." Safuya stepped forward. "But will Attila ever return?" Mommy Nyoka shook her head. "The sea serpent that took him is ancient. It only rises when justice has been denied for too long. It sleeps once more, and Attila is gone, lost to his own greed." Zubri looked to the horizon. "Then it's over." "No," Mommy Nyoka said gently. "It's only just beginning. A new tide has come." From her coral bracelets, she removed a single glowing pearl. "This," she said, holding it out to Zubri, "is the eye of the deep. It holds no power to grant wishes or raise armies. But it reveals truth. Use it wisely." Zubri took the pearl and tucked it into a leather pouch around his neck. Then, to everyone's surprise, Mommy Nyoka smiled, a wide, heartfelt smile, and rose higher into the air. "The ocean has chosen its guardian. You are no longer just Zubri. From this day forward, the spirits call you Ocean Prince. The villagers who had followed them began to chant his name. Zubri the brave. Zubri the just. Safuya took his hand. And now, Zubri said, we rebuild. Over the next year, the once poor village of Mbamba transformed. With Zubri's leadership and Safuya's wisdom, they built schools where children learned about both land and sea. They started healing centers using herbs and ocean minerals. Fishers were taught new ways to harvest that honored the ocean's balance, and for the first time, no nets were tangled in forbidden waters. Zubri invested in clean boats powered by wind, helped traders build floating markets, and opened a center to rescue marine life harmed by storms or nets. He did not build a palace of gold. Instead, he created a floating village called Ohamaji, meaning flowing peace, where land people and sea people could meet. Even Mommy Nyoka came often, teaching children the songs of the sea. One day, Safuya stood beside Zubri on the edge of Ohamaji, the waves gently rocking beneath their feet. We could go anywhere now, she said. What do you want next? Zubri smiled. Peace. And time to fish. Maybe teach little ones how to throw a net without catching trouble. Safuya laughed. And if trouble comes? He held up the pearl from Mommy Nyoka. I'll see the truth before it bites. Years passed. The name of Zubri the Ocean Prince became legend. Travelers came from distant lands to see the floating village, to learn its story. Children sang of the 3 magic shells. Elders told of the sea serpent and the day the ocean roared for justice. And though Zubri and Safuya grew older, they never stopped walking the shores of Mbamba, teaching, healing, and watching the tide. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Zubri stood alone with the wind in his hair. He took out the glowing pearl. Mommy Nyoka, he whispered, will the ocean ever be truly safe? The wind whispered back, soft and sure, only if those who love it keep it safe. Zubri nodded, then turned to see children playing by the waves, his own daughter among them, tossing a carved wooden dolphin high into the air. And in the sea beyond, for just a moment, a flash of silver tail and coral chains shimmered beneath the waves. This is the story of Zubri, the fisherman's son who became a prince without needing a crown. He taught us that true power comes not from magic, but from courage, kindness, and wisdom. Riches earned through respect for others and nature will last longer than gold stolen by force. The sea, like life, gives back to those who listen and protect it. And sometimes, the smallest shell holds the greatest truth. So remember, whether you walk the land or sail the waves, always guard your heart, share your strength, and never be too proud to ask the ocean for help. Because in every drop of water, a story waits to be told. And Zubri's will never be forgotten.